Okay, I think we'll get started as people are logging on. Welcome everyone to HIU's community prayer. Just a reminder about community prayer. Community prayer offers the university the opportunity to gather together for spiritual support. The format and focus of the service will change and take the shape of the particular tradition of the community prayer leader each week. Attendees who do not identify with the tradition being celebrated in a week are encouraged to attend and be participant observers as their comfort level allows. Participants from any and no religious tradition are welcome. So we're glad you are joining us this week for a time of learning, reflecting, and praying. And I'm delighted to welcome our guest presenter for today, Imam Kashif Abdul Rahman, who is the Imam at the Masjid Muhammad in Hartford in Frog Hollow. And I've had the pleasure of visiting him there at his masjid, as well as he was a participant for us and a leader to give a benediction at I think it was the 2018 or 2019, no, 2021 commencements, right, post-COVID, when we came back. So we're delighted that you're able to join us and be with us today. So salam alaikum, welcome, and I will turn this over to you. Welcome, Imam.
Okay. I hope everyone's able to see. If you so, David, can you just not chat?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Okay, the topic today, inshallah, I'm going to be doing the concept of our oneness or oneness in terms of how we look at that. And as always, begin with Allah's name, the merciful benefactor, the merciful redeemer. And we turn to him seeking assistance. We turn to him seeking forgiveness. We turn to him seeking refuge, protection, and guardianship from the evil that comes from their own selves. Recognize there is no God to be served besides the one God, Allah, and revealed is that Muhammad is his messenger. We will give everyone today the kinetic expression of peace. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh, which means may the peace, blessings, and mercy of Almighty God be upon you all. Assalamu alaikum. Today, I'd like to begin with a topic that I think, or many of us who are Muslim are very familiar with, the concept of oneness. And Allah says to us in the Quran, in Surah 39, Ayah 62, God is the creator of all things, and He alone has the power to determine the fate of all things. Now, the key words that we see exemplified here is the concept all things and He alone. All things and He alone. So, for us, many times as Muslims, we ask this very simple question: what are the two things that exist? What are only two things that exist? Of all the things there are, we believe there's only two things that exist. And what might that be? We ask the question. And we say it's the creator and his creation. Those are only two things that exist: the creator and his creation. And what that means to us is that the creator is Allah and the creation is Muslim. Two things that exist. The creator is Allah, the creator of all things, and the creation is Muslim, all things that the creator has created. Now, the word Allah in Muslim comes quite often with a lot of baggage due to our own experiences with the words. The literal meaning of Allah in English is the supreme deity. So Muslim also means one who submits to the will of this supreme deity. So quite often if I say to anybody who's a person of faith anywhere in the world and ask them, do he believe in the supreme deity? He would say, yes, I do. If we ask anyone in the world if he submits to the will of that same supreme deity, they would say, oh, yes, I do. So if we ask anyone, anywhere in the world, if they believed in God, would they accept the idea of a supreme deity, a supreme God, and that they submit to the will of this same God? They would answer yes. But if I said the same thing in Arabic, I said, do you accept Allah as your God? They would say no. If I asked them if they Muslim, they would say no. So if I said Allah in Arabic, they would say no because of the baggage associated with the word Allah. And they would say no, they're not Muslim because of the baggage associated with the word Allah. Baggage, what I mean is the experiences that they have with that particular word. Now, as the Muslims, we have another term. It is called al-haq, which means the sure reality. It means the truth, but it means something greater than truth. It's the highest and unquestionable truth. It's the highest sure reality. So, regardless of what a person might think, regardless of what a person might say, there's a higher and greater answer that God knows and no one else knows but He. The highest and unquestionable truth that there is, of course, the answer that only Allah or God knows. For example, God's existence and that God is real, whether anyone says they believe it or not, whether they say it's true or not true, if God exists or doesn't exist, we know that God is real because the highest and surest truth predicts and tells us that it is. So, regardless if unbelievers don't believe, the belief and the true reality is that God is still God. He is still real. He is still the supreme being. That's the high truth. So, we understand there's man truth and there's God's truth. And man's truth is quite often based on people getting together and agreeing on what's true and what's untrue, what's right and wrong. Man's truth is the agreed upon ideas, the agreed upon experiences that determine what truth is, according to man. Now we separate that from Allah's truth, the sure reality, the highest truth, and man's truth, which of course is always lower than Allah's truth. And man's truth, again, is based on agreement. Let me give you an example. At one time, man agreed collectively that Earth is flat. If we didn't agree with that, we would consider the or extreme or backwards. We all agree, like my age, if you're my age, you remember when you was going to school and you were taught that Pluto is a planet. We all agreed in class. We was to teach about the planets. And we would say Pluto is a planet that's real, that's very, very far away. We would talk about Pluto. We would talk about the Earth being flat during the time periods of the early people and what they thought as being right. And today we understand that the Earth is clearly round. Pluto is not a planet. But this was the agreed upon ideas that the people had. The Earth was flat and Pluto is a planet. More difficult things to understand when we talk about agreement. We think about how Black people or African Americans were considered not human beings. So there was ideas and agreement among certain people that created laws and ideas and images and pictures of Black people not being considered human beings. And there was also a time period when people would look at the idea of divine destiny, that they had the God given right to be able to do these things or to do particular ideas because they were chosen. They were chosen by God to do those particular things. And this is what the people agreed upon. People would go out into the Wild West. They would go into the western shores of America, take the land away from the Indians, and they agreed it was their God given right to do that. It was their divine destiny. People looking for justification for human beings and black people being not considered human beings, being two-thirds of a man, a third of a man, not equal at all, being able to justify their thinking. We saw these ideas being developed because of people agreeing to what was true and what was not true. So it's easy to talk about the earth being flat. It's easy to talk about Pluto being a planet, but we understand that the agreement that people determined to be true became more and more um, present. So the idea of truth and what is true, people didn't really think about what was moral truth, what was God's truth, what did God say. They was more concerned with man's truth. So agreement, this idea of agreed upon truth, is based upon what we call as social constructs. And this is a term that I think many of us who have studied behaviorism, who have studied psychology, have come across the idea of social constructs, which is again agreed upon truths. So, what is social constructs? How do we define it? Well, first of all, a social construct is a concept that exists not in objective reality, but as a result of human interaction. It exists because humans agree that it exists. Psychologists and social scientists study socially constructed reality in order to better understand how groups of people create social phenomena. So when you understand that there's only two things that exist, the creator's creation, we understand that everything in creation falls together in the idea of being one. It falls together in the idea of Tawheed, that oneness. But human beings, we know, are being developed or moved into different colors, different shapes, different ideas, different demographics. But in the smaller picture that is agreed upon by man, those ideas are developed by human beings, not the picture that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, God the Most High, has set. He has made us all part of the creation, made all of us human beings. But human beings, man, separates us and gives us different objectives, different realities that really do not exist. They're social constructs. They're not really real. A person is a human being regardless of where they are, regardless of their religion, regardless of their faith, regardless of where they live. They are still the same. They are still identical. But the social constructs, the truth that has been developed from the interaction of men, make us have differences of opinion. So again, psychologists and social scientists have studied social constructed reality, how we interact with each other, and gave labels and ideas to the people who do those particular things. Just like we look at the idea, we say, well, what's a Muslim food? Some people would say bean pies. Other people would say basmati rice. But in reality, it's not a Muslim food. It's a cultural thing that a group of people might identify with in a particular place and idea. Is a food is anything that we digest that goes into human being that provides nutrition or sustenance to make us go to the next stage. But we have different flavors. We have different things that we eat. We have different things that we enjoy because of our cultural experiences and, of course, these different places and what grows and develops in those different places. So, psychologists and social scientists have developed ways and developed ideas and have developed truths to be able to lump us together or lump us together into different ideas. So, what are some examples of social constructs that we see happen around us now? What are some of these truths? Well, the idea of countries. You know, countries would not exist were it not for human interaction. Humans have to agree that there is such a thing as a country and agree on what country is. Without agreement, there would be really no countries. So I remember coming to the master when I first became the imam at Muhammad Islamic Center Hartford. We had people from North Somalia and South Somalia arguing with each other. We had people from North Sudan and South Sudan arguing with each other because they were on the other side of the country. Oh, I'm a Sudanese, but I think this way. They could be cousins, they could be related, they could be people who are common with one another, share the same bloodline, but because they might be northern or southern, because they might be Pakistani or American, or because they're from a different place from around the world, they would then define themselves and see each other not as human beings, not as all of us being in the same boat, all of us being going through the same experiences together in America collectively, they would still see themselves as different. They would see orientation strange because of the definitions and the truth that they had defined among themselves as being countries or ideologies. Even the idea of money. Money also would not exist without human interaction. When we think about objective reality, we might think that the money does exist after all. We can touch the paper, we can touch the coins. However, unless human beings agree collectively that this paper, and that's all it is, a piece of paper is worth 10 or 20 or 100 or $1,000. Because we agree on that idea, we give value to that thing. That thing becomes what it is. It becomes the truth, becomes valuable because of the ideas that we connect to it, the truths that again we connect to it. So a coin is just a coin. It's just a metal disc. But we give it value because of the agreement, the truths that we assign it as human beings. When we look at gender roles as a social construct today, there was a time 50 years ago when women were believed to be domestic and not have any power, not be able to vote, be in their places solely with children to keep them at home. And men were supposed to be the aggressive and the ones who were supposed to be the strongest, etc. But over the years, again, that particular truth has changed because of the conditions that are going on. So the gender roles we find actually that God has given us, Allah has given us in the Quran quite often differ from the cultural roles that we see operate in particular lands. Like, for example, not offering a woman or a girl education. When we find that in Islam, women would be raised up in their communities if they were educated. Men were encouraged to educate our girls in particular if they would be raised up. So the gender roles were often based on stereotypes and based on truths that did not come from God, but came from men interacting, agreed upon truths became again the reality of that particular places around the world. Even courthouses and our laws. A courthouse again is just a building until a community agrees that it's a place for the practice of law. And we have to agree what law is. We have to agree on that social construct. Like, for example, we deal with Thanksgiving traffic. The law said the speed limit was 55 or 65, but in reality, people was driving 90, 80 miles an hour. Why? Because they didn't agree with what the particular law is. Even though the law exists, even though the rule exists, even though the courthouse comes together to create laws and rules, etc., we see that because of the lack of agreement what is the right speed limit that is necessary get followed. So why create human social constructs anyway? Well, the social constructs theorists say that humans create these constructs in order to make sense of the world that's around them. One way human beings create social constructs is by structuring what they see, experience into quote unquote categories. For example, they see people from different places around the world. They see people of different skin colors and other physical features. They create social constructs of what a person is who has a dark skin, who has a light skin. They start talking about house Negro, film Negroes. They start talking about dark skinned people, light skinned people. They start talking about Palestinian Israelites. They instead of seeing everybody as being human beings. They are generally creating again social constructs that go against the word of God, what God says a person is, in order to satisfy their own temporary ideas that they're putting forward. So, social scientists or social constructs exist because people agree they exist. They play an essential role in helping people understand and interact with the world in which they live. While we often accept these constructs as inherent truths, as being what is real, it is important to remember that many of these truths are human made and can change over time. This includes our ideas about topics such as gender, race, religion, and demographics, but recognize that our reality is socially constructed. We can work on creating a more inclusive world that would embrace a full range and diversity of human experiences. So again, we understand what is real, what is Allah, what is the true reality. Well, the idea of oneness is all right, is the idea that we're all connected, that we have again one God. We really have one book. We have one prophet and we have one deen, one way of life. We all come together and believe there's the oneness of God. Regardless of what we call him, he is still in the higher truth, the high reality, one. Regardless of what people think or how they conceive him, they understand that he represents one. Recognize that really there's one book. Now we say one book, but we think of the books as being a nonstop revelation that's been sent down over a period of time. So as Muslims, we are forced, we don't have a choice. The Quran teaches us that Allah has sent the Suhuf of Ibrahim. He has sent the Torah, He has sent the Psalms, He has sent the Gospel, He has sent the Quran, or a period of time to different prophets. And we must accept these prophets that came to us at those particular times, must accept the word of God as He gave it to us in this revelation, in this one revelation from, again, one God. We have to accept this, and all of these are just ayahs and verses to support that. We don't have time. We are running out of time. We have 2 minutes left. So we understand that we had one God. We have one book made up of, for example, many chapters, but one revelation. We're all of us connected. We have 25 prophets that are mentioned in the Quran, but they are the same prophets that are mentioned in all of our books that are all connected as one. We see here that Adam, Idris, Noah, Jacob, Yusuf, Joseph, Shuaib, Moses, Musa, David, Dawood. We can go Muhammad. We can go on and on. All of these, we see that there's really one prophethood. So indeed, we understand again, there's only one religion, one way of life. Deen means way of life. It's not just the books we read, the rituals, but it's really all about our way of life. It's a complete way of life. So we all share in the same deen, the way of life that's established by our one God, one creator alone of all things. We're out of time, so I have to stop there. We're going to stop this share, and I'm going to open it up for questions. David, etc.
Thank you, Imam, for that khutbah. We appreciate your words today and the time that you've taken to be with us. We've come to the end of our time of community prayer. And so we will move to a time of holy grounds for those people who would like to stay and be in conversation with the Imam a little bit more. But let me just say something quickly about the next few community prayers. Next week, we will have community prayer on Zoom once again, and the Spiritual Life Center will be hosting us. And then on the 13th, we will have an in-person community prayer. We will commemorate Hanukkah, and that will be followed by a community meal. Right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I'll stop the recording. And Habiba, do you want to say a few words to our guest and welcome others into the conversation?